Major James Connor peered through his binoculars at the alien horde advancing across the barren landscape. Thousands of Zarkesh warriors, their iridescent carapaces glinting in the harsh sunlight, marched inexorably towards the small human outpost. Connor lowered the binoculars and turned to face his men, all that remained of the 7th Terran Defense Battalion. "Gentlemen," he said, his voice steady despite the dire circumstances, "I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered at least 50 to 1. Command has gone dark. For all we know, we're the last humans left on this godforsaken rock." Private First Class Michael Chen, barely out of his teens, swallowed hard. "So this is it, sir? We're done for." Connor's steel-gray eyes locked onto the young soldier. "No, son. This is where we show these bugs what humans are made of." He gestured to the squat, unremarkable building behind them, the reason for their last stand. "That facility houses Project Prometheus. If we can hold out for another 6 hours, it'll be ready. And when it is..." A wolfish grin spread across the Major's weathered face. "Well, let's just say the Zarkesh are in for one hell of a surprise." Sergeant William Bull Tanner, a mountain of a man with a shaved head and a thick beard, hefted his massive railgun. "Begging your pardon, sir, but how the hell are 37 of you supposed to hold off an entire army?" Connor's grin widened. "The same way our ancestors held the hot gates at Thermopylae, Sergeant." With courage, cunning, and a hell of a lot of firepower, he turned to address the assembled soldiers. "Men, I won't order you to stay. Anyone who wants to make a run for it, now's your chance. No one will think less of you." For a moment, silence reigned. Then Bull stepped forward, planting his railgun stock on the ground with a resounding thud. 37 came in, sir. 37 stand ready." A chorus of affirmations rang out, and Connor felt a swell of pride. These were good men, the best humanity had to offer, and by God, they'd make the Zarkesh pay dearly for every inch of ground. "All right, ladies," Connor barked, falling easily into the familiar rhythm of command. "You know the drill. Alpha Team, I want you on the western approach. Bravo, you've got the east. Charlie, you're our mobile reserve, be ready to plug any gaps. Bull, get your heavy weapons team set up on that ridgeline. I want overlapping fields of fire covering every square inch of this valley." As his men scrambled to their positions, Connor tapped his wrist-mounted computer. A holographic display sprang to life, showing the layout of the surrounding terrain and the approaching Zarkesh forces. He studied it intently, looking for any advantage they could exploit. The aliens had them outnumbered and outgunned, but Connor had two critical advantages: home field and desperation. He intended to make the most of both. Hours passed, and the Zarkesh drew ever closer. Connor moved from position to position, offering words of encouragement and making final adjustments to their defenses. As the alien army came within range, he gave the order they'd all been waiting for. "All units weapons free. Give EM hell." The valley erupted in a cacophony of weapons fire. Railguns thundered, their hypersonic projectiles tearing through the Zarkesh ranks. Plasma bolts sizzled through the air, turning sand to glass where they struck. And all the while the aliens advanced, heedless of their losses. Private Chen crouched behind a hastily erected barricade, his pulse rifle chattering as he poured fire into the oncoming horde. Beside him, Corporal Rodriguez lobbed grenades with pinpoint accuracy, each detonation sending alien body parts flying. "There's so many of them," Chen shouted over the din of battle. Rodriguez grinned, his teeth startlingly white against his soot-stained face. "Just means we can't miss, kid." On the ridgeline, Bull's heavy weapons team rained death upon the Zarkesh. The big sergeant stood exposed, calmly calling out targets as he swept his massive railgun back and forth. Each thunderous report was followed by a line of explosions as the weapons depleted uranium slugs detonated inside their targets. For a time it seemed as though the defenders might actually hold, but slowly, inexorably, the weight of numbers began to tell. One by one, Connor watched as position markers winked out on his tactical display. Good men dying to buy time for a weapon they could only pray would work. "Major," it was Lieutenant Reeves, his voice crackling over the comm. "They're pushing hard on the eastern flank. We can't the transmission cut off in a burst of static." Connor gritted his teeth. "Charlie Team, reinforce the east. Bull, I need suppressing fire on grid coordinates Lima 7. "Roger that." Boss Bull's voice boomed back. Moments later, the ridgeline lit up as the heavy weapons team poured fire into the designated sector. But it wasn't enough. The Zarkesh kept coming, scrambling over the bodies of their fallen comrades, their alien shrieks filling the air. Connor watched in horror as they overwhelmed Bravo Team's position, mandibles and claws tearing into human flesh. He toggled his comm, broadcasting on all frequencies. Fall back to the facility. I repeat, all units fall back to the facility. The surviving defenders began a fighting retreat, covering each other as they withdrew. Connor found himself in the thick of it, his sidearm blazing as he dragged a wounded soldier to safety. They made their final stand at the entrance to the Project Prometheus facility. Barely a dozen men left, ammunition running low, but still they fought on. Connor stood shoulder to shoulder with his men, emptying magazine after magazine into the surging alien tide. Bull appeared at his side, the sergeant's massive frame providing welcome cover. "It's been an honor, sir," he growled, unleashing a final burst from his railgun before the weapon clicked empty. Connor checked his wrist computer. They'd bought enough time barely. He smiled grimly at the big sergeant. "The honor's been mine, Bull. But we're not done yet." He keyed in a final command sequence, and the facility behind them hummed to life. Panels slid open, revealing a massive device that began to pulse with eldritch energies. The Zarkesh faltered, sensing that something had changed. But it was too late. Project Prometheus unleashed its fury. A wave of coruscating energy swept outward, engulfing everything in its path. Where it touched the Zarkesh, their bodies simply came apart, dissolving into their component atoms. In seconds, the entire alien army was reduced to nothing more than dust on the wind. The energy wave continued to expand, growing to encompass the entire planet. Connor and his men watched in awe as reports came flooding in from across the globe. Everywhere, the same story: total Zarkesh annihilation. As quickly as it had begun, it was over. Humanity had won. Connor slumped against the facility wall, exhaustion finally overtaking him. He looked at the battered, bloodied men gathered around him, all that remained of his command. Men who had stood fast in the face of impossible odds and emerged victorious. "Well, gentlemen," he said, a weary smile crossing his face, "I'd say we just saved the world." Bull let out a booming laugh. "Damn right we did, sir. Humanity, fuck yeah." The cheer was taken up by the others, growing in volume until it echoed across the now silent battlefield. And as Connor joined in, he knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, humanity would face them head-on. After all, they were only human. And that was more than enough.